My colleague John North, it's time to dive into all things John North.
Sorry I didn't dress up.
You look fantastic, as always, my friend, especially on a Friday. Let's talk a little bit about what makes you tick and where you're from, John.
All right. I am from the great state of California. What makes me tick is a great sense of the need for the truth and a disdain for hypocrisy and a need to hold people accountable for their actions. That's what motivates me.
You have been in this craft for how many years now?
Oh, my first journalism job was in December of 1982. And I've basically been doing this kind of gig at either a newspaper or a television station ever since.
In Knoxville, you've been here since the 90s, started at the Knoxville News Sentinel before coming to WBIR, but really covered a lot of gritty crime and court stories in your time with the newspaper.
That's right. Had covered crime in Kansas City when I worked for the Kansas City Star before I moved here. I moved here in July of 1993 specifically to cover the courts, the state courts here, which was a reason that I accepted the job. I was like, yeah, I love doing that. I think human behavior is utterly fascinating. The courts are a portal into all things dealing with human beings, and happily came here in the summer of 93 to jump right in, and Knox County and East Tennessee have never been a disappointment.
Why East Tennessee? What was it about this job that attracted you?
I love to answer that question. Here's why. First of all, when I was a young man in college, I worked in a national park, Acadia National Park. And I always thought, man, I would love to get close again someday to a national park. So I knew that Knoxville was close to, obviously, the Smokies, and I thought that would be very appealing. I also knew, sort of as a separate thing, how pretty the area is where we live, how amazing it is. By the way, this is before the secret got out about Knoxville and East Tennessee. I moved here and I thought, I can't believe I get to live in this place and nobody knows about it except the locals, and that's fine by me. Another reason was that I was getting a chance to work with somebody who really is just kind of an amazing person in our profession, who was my direct boss at the News Sentinel, and just an amazing man to work for. His name's Tom Chester. He's retired now, and he's grumpy, and he doesn't want to be bothered, so I don't call him too much, but he was just an outstanding journalist.
You touched on it, the beauty of this place. Let's talk about this community and how it's evolved in the almost 30 years you've been here.
I absolutely love this place. You know, John, I'm a kid of divorce. When I was a little boy, my parents split up, and I ended up moving a lot, either with my mother when I lived with her, or with my dad, or then again with my mom. So for me, a sense of home became really important. And for a long time in my life, I didn't have that. I wasn't sure what home meant. I sort of tasted that a little bit in Kansas City when I was a kid. I moved here, and I said, this is it. This is home. This is the kind of place, and I don't want to sound overly dramatic, but be happy to rest my bones here someday, and I will.
Let's go through your Rolodex of stories, John, which is, again, years just in this town. Is there one that impacted you in a way that others haven't?
Well, I think a lot of cases where I have had to deal with sort of the horrible things that human beings can do to each other has affected me, and knowing the families of the victims and getting to know them, that has affected me. There was a case I covered once here in Knox County of a young man who was wrongfully fired from his job because, through no fault of his own, he was a hemophiliac and he was given bad blood that gave him HIV. That really outraged me, and that's a case I remember. I remember another case from the late 90s that weighed on me heavily that involved a mom who died in a fire along with her daughter and her daughter's friend, and they were children, and that one always bothered me as well. So those kinds of cases, I mean, you know, people like to say, oh, what famous people have you met? Or, you know, what politicians have you taken down? And, you know, we've done reporting on that here and when I was at the paper. But it's the stories where you're talking about human beings and their lives. Those are the ones that really affect me.
If not journalism, what would your career be?
Wow. Well, okay, so I bagged out on the idea of being an English teacher because I thought, my God, I won't make any money. Well, guess what? I don't make much money here either in journalism, but that's okay. It's more entertaining. I didn't want to be a teacher, so, honestly, I probably would be a poor, broken down, but beloved community actor.
You mentioned Tom Chester.
Yep.
What else inspires you to be the journalist you are?
Well, like I say, I really do mean this. Since I was about a fourth grader and I first got my sense of outrage about somebody being wrongly accused of something, it was a teacher who accused a kid of wrongly doing something. That's never gone away. I truly believe in the truth. I'm passionate about it. I hate hypocrisy. That's a little bit hard these days, especially considering the political climate. Those things just get me fired up. I also just am fascinated endlessly, and maybe I'll write a book or two someday of either fiction or fact, by human beings. They are just so amazing. I used to be a big fiction reader. I just don't read much fiction anymore because nonfiction, the truth truly is stranger than fiction.
If there's one place you could take a visitor to East Tennessee or Knoxville, where would it be?
Oh, wow. What a great question, because I have so many spots that I'm deeply fond of. I'd probably take them to the park. I'd probably take them up Newfound Gap, maybe to that spot up there that's kind of the demarcation line between Tennessee and North Carolina. There are lots of beautiful spots, as you know, John, in the park. And in East Tennessee, we are so lucky, but that's probably where I'd go.
You mentioned teaching was sort of in the mix in your thinking about what you're going to do. And I'm just going to tell people who are watching this, John is a tremendous mentor. You are a tremendous mentor, John, to so many young journalists. If you could impart one or two pieces of advice to young journalists watching this right now, what advice would you offer?
Great question. The first would be, when you are with somebody and trying to gather information and talking to them, to practice your listening skills and listen very closely to what people are trying to tell you. I'm afraid that we're not so great communicators anymore. We tend to walk over each other. We miss a lot of cues and clues that the other person is trying to tell us. Often they are really trying to tell us something and we're just missing it. So I would say work on being a great listener. Be empathetic. I try to be empathetic when I'm dealing with anyone, whether that's somebody that's accused of doing something bad or somebody that's done something fabulous. Empathy goes a long way toward understanding what's happening in a person's soul. And I don't know if it's just that being a kid who's grew up in some difficult circumstances in my life that I learned that. I learned to read the room a lot better, so I can sort of tell if something's going on and pick it up. I think, especially today, people have their noses buried so deeply in their phones that, a blimp could just go 5 feet above their heads and they would miss it. And you need to pay attention to what's happening around you, and my goodness, you may learn an amazing amount of information just simply by being more aware of what's happening around you.
John North, thank you for the time.
Thank you.